Can you feel it? The beckoning call of the wild. The kindling in your spirit when you hear the untamed howls of the wilderness. The immolation in your blood as the thrill of the hunt pours over you. Smoldering remains of your enemies lay in waste behind as you conquer and bond with beasts of unwavering loyalty and ferocity. And only whispers dare call your name, as all fear the swift death that falls from your aim, for you are the hunter.
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Cloak and Quiver podcast. My name is Solar, and welcome back. It is also good to be back. I went out of town last week, as you may have noticed. There was no show to visit family. Now that I'm back, it seems like there's a lot of information that we're going to cover, so today's going to be a very news-packed episode, which is great, actually, because during the time off since the episode 6 and now, there was like a ton of alpha information, so it's going to be really cool to talk about that. There's a lot of really good changes. What a time to be alive playing a hunter. But I want to talk about a few things before we get into the main bulk of the show here. The first one being is I'm actually off from work this week. I work as a lifeguard right now for the city, and the season doesn't start until next week, so I have this entire week to myself before I go back into 40 hours a week mode again, and I'm going to take this time to build a website for the show. I'm going to buckle down and do it. I think I've got some spare change, and cloakandquiver.com should be up and running soon TM. I'm going to, after this show is recorded, actually, I'm gonna go through HostGator, grab a domain name, and then start working on WordPress. I know nothing about website creation and tools, so if you guys want to send me pointers in like email or Twitter or something, that'd be awesome. But I'm actually really excited to get a domain name for the show. I think it's long overdue, and it should be cool. I want to make it really nice. Like, it'll have RSS feed and link to iTunes and news and just like show archives and stuff like that. And then also maybe I'll do some news posts and stuff too. I'm not really a blogger type person, but we'll see what we can do. I think there's a lot of options in terms of an actual website for the show, and like I said, it's much needed, so I'm going to work on that this week. I'm kind of excited to do it too. Like I said, doing something new is always pretty fun for me. I'm going to give it a good crack, so we'll see what happens. Next thing I want to talk about is the show, actually, not or I guess both, the show, the people, was featured on Realm Maintenance podcast this week with Ro. We were in the podcast spotlight, so if you guys want to check that out, check out the Realm Maintenance podcast, episode 95, that's the one we're in. And it was just really nice to sit down, talk about the show, get a little bit more publicity, and tell the people, what we do. And I think we got a few new listeners, so welcome aboard to Cloak and Quiver. And it was just a nice time to be with Ro again. I did a podcast segment for Convert to Raid years back with him as well, and that was a fun time too. So if you guys want to check that out, it's there. And also at the end of last week's episode, we discussed the prospect of an all-hunter raid, specifically for Mogushan Vaults, to see if we could get like 10 or 25 hunters together and see what kind of bosses we could tackle with an all-hunter raid. I talked to a pretty prominent soloing hunter in the community. His name is Shoot. And we kind of knocked heads together a little bit to see what we could come up with. We don't exactly know the details yet. He wanted like a 580 plus item level for the whole raid. I thought that might have been a little ridiculous because I don't know, what population that actually speaks to in regards to our viewers. But, we'll see what goes on, if we can be a little lenient about that. Because I want to involve as many people as I can, and the faction barrier is also kind of a big deal. Like, a lot of the cool people in the Hunter community, like, Bendak and everyone on the Warcraft Hunters Union podcast, and Delirium and stuff like that. You guys all play Alliance, so we'll see what happens. I don't know if I want to pay for a faction transfer for my main. So it's in progress, but we want to get something together, whether it be 10 or 25 hunters and Mogushan Vaults. We'll see what happens, but I'll keep you guys updated on that. I just thought you should know the ball's still rolling. Speaking of soloing, or not really soloing, but just hunters and doing crazy stuff, I tackled Sinestra this week on 25 Heroic and as a solo, and dang, that is hard. It hasn't been done yet by any hunters, and I figured I thought I would take a good swing at it. And I worked on Phase 1 for the majority of the weekend, and I didn't think it possible. And then towards the end of Sunday night, I actually got into Phase 2, which was awesome. I love that feeling of progress, especially in the face of I don't think this is possible. And it's been a good challenge for me, and I'm going to keep doing that too. So wish me luck in that endeavor. But the fight has so many facets to it that I really don't know how I'm going to continue on. Like in phase 3, it's kind of an enrage because the room fills up with these puddles. It works a lot like Defile's Lich King, but you don't have to stand in it. The puddles just grow larger on their own. And these ads keep spawning that you have to keep on your pet and yourself to split the damage, so it's not like overwhelming on one or the other. And you have to do 77 million damage to Sinestra before you're overwhelmed by these puddles and these ads. And I don't know how I'm going to do that. We'll see how it goes. I'm still working on a lot of things. And that's what I like about soloing, is you have to use your entire toolkit. And then you also have to tweak that too. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to use my Bloodlust here. Well, maybe you can find another way to squeeze in a lot of damage, like using your potion there instead, and then saving your Bloodlust for a later time in the fight. So things like that. So I've been using a lot of my brain power for that this week. But that was a fun challenge. I just wanted to let you guys kind of know what I was up to in Warcraft this week when I got back. And last thing I want to talk about, we talked about this, I think, the last 4 shows now, is the level 85 raid team getting together on the Convert to Raid guilds. It's something that you can do during the summer. We have room for 4. I think we have room for a tank, a healer, or 2, and a DPS. And World of Warcraft right now has gotten pretty stagnant for me. There's not a lot of stuff I can find in the game that is keeping me occupied, and I honestly think a raid team where I'm doing something new and exciting, well, it's just something to do. I don't know if like Cataclysm content is new and exciting, but I think I'm going to have a lot of fun in the first 2 tiers, and I'm looking for 4 other individuals to come join us. And I know we talked about this on last week's episode too, if you want a bit more information on it. And then the first episode where we talked about this, I think I mentioned a bit more on it as well. But I'm looking for 4 other people to do it, so come on, join an adventure. It should be a lot of fun. And it's just something to do, right? Like Siege of Orgrimmar, I think I've been doing for like 36, 35 weeks now. That's crazy. That's boring as heck. So I want to find something to change it up. So come on and help me change it up. But I think that does it for our intro. Let's get into our news, which is also very hefty. First thing I want to talk about in regards to news is I'm gonna kind of work back. I'm gonna work from the old news all the way up to the current news. So just the stuff that we missed in the meantime. And I'm sure, as you all know by now, the first thing we're going to talk about is the upgrades to Siege of Orgrimmar item level. The items that you have in Siege of Orgrimmar can go up from 2 of 2 upgraded to 4 of 4 upgraded now. And a lot of people were wondering, what do I upgrade first? And I think you guys may have already figured it out by now, but in case you haven't, or you're still kind of curious, what is it called? The short and short of it. The short of it is weapons, trinkets, cloak, and then armor that gives the most agility. That's the basics. But there is something to be said if you are like maybe having, for example, you have a ring and a Warforged ring, and you're going to be raiding that night, and you think you're going to replace the non-Warforged ring because you're going to kill 4 bosses that can drop a ring in Siege this night. And so you say, okay, I'm going to upgrade just the Warforged ring, and I'm going to see if I am going to replace the non-Warforged ring. So sometimes you kind of have to make those decisions based on, is this going to drop tonight? And it's hard to say because RNG is RNG. But you can make educated guesses as to what you think you're going to upgrade. But like I said, it's generally weapons, trinket, cloak, and then armor that gives the most agility, but take into account, okay, this piece is heroic. Am I going to see this heroic Warforged piece anytime soon? Probably not. Okay, I'm going to upgrade this normal piece instead, or something like that. You just kind of have to take a gander at your gear and what you're going to be seeing the most of, or having the chance to see the most of. And so just take that into consideration as you're upgrading your gear as you move on. It's pretty crazy, too, because we came in this weekend in Siege, and we all had our upgrades in. I think most of the raid was sitting at just about 580 plus. I'm sitting at 585 right now, which is nuts. And, man, did we crush Siege. I didn't think it was going to be that big of an impact, but 25 people with that item upgrades that had 3,000 Valor worths just stored away. Holy smokes. I think we smashed all of our record times on the bosses. And that was a lot of fun. So the upgrades do make a difference, collectively, of course. But, the item levels are getting out of hand, or at least the DPS is. The DPS has just been crazy. So there is that. So those are the upgrades. Like I said, if you may replace something, consider using an upgrade on like a Warforged piece or something like that. But other than that, let's talk about something else which I think is amazing, and it's quivers and ammo pouches. I'm sure everyone has seen this already. It was all the rage on Twitter the day that it was announced on Artcraft. But what it is we're finally getting cosmetics again for quivers and ammo pouches, which has been discussed and yearned for such a long time. I can't even remember how far back people wanted to have this. And I like the idea behind it. It's essentially, a cosmetic piece, like an ammo belt that we have strapped across our waist or our chest, and quivers, which we're going to throw on our back, of course. I doubt we'd see any hip quivers. That'd be kind of weird. But what they said is by defeating bosses or completing challenges, we'd be gaining access to these rewards. So if you did like a raid tier and you killed the final boss, you would get the quiver that he would drop or something like that, or a chance of. Or perhaps if you did Proving Grounds and you got to wave 30, you'd get this, shiny new ammo belt or something like that. And I like that because it makes you go back and do stuff, or just go and challenge yourself to do stuff to get this new cosmetic reward, which that's good. That adds incentive to the game. The one thing I didn't care for, though, was, and you can't really do anything about this, but in the article it said that you most likely won't see this until after you've defeated the Iron Horde. So does that mean it's going to be like at the end of Warlords? I don't think the way they phrased that we're going to be seeing this anytime soon, which is really saddening. It's hard for us to get this awesome information, something that I feel so passionately about, having quivers in the game, and then being told, okay, wait an entire expansion until you can use it. That's a huge bummer. I love the idea behind it. I love the concept of having to go and do things to earn them. You may get like one as you leveled up. They showed these pictures as it progressed. Like the level 10 one was very basic. Level 21, added a few more things. Level 100 one had these like cool magic bullets and stuff like that. If it upgraded by level, that'd be kind of neat. But I also really like the idea of going and doing things like Brawlers Guild, Proving Grounds, challenge modes, things like that. That's exciting. But like I said, if it's after WoD or like the tail end of WoD, that just gives me a huge... That leaves me with a saddened heart, because you have to wait so long for something that's so awesome, and I think could really add a lot of value. Just like the hunter pets, like the hunter-specific pets, like the ones we got in Firelands. That was cool, and it gave us something to do. I don't want to see this, put on the back burner, or even like go the way of the dance studio, perhaps, or what else have they put into the game that they've taken back. I hope they stick with it, and I hope it's not as far out as they said it was, because I'm not on the art department. I have no idea how these things work, but how hard is it to add modeling for this to put on a character? I mean, you just reskin the entire races of World of Warcraft. How hard is it to put in a slot on a character's back where this item goes here? I don't know. That's why I'm not on the art team, but hopefully it's soon. And I really like this idea a lot, though. It was very exciting to me when I first heard about it. Now let's change gears a little bit and talk about some of the alpha changes to our class. One of the things I saw that was totally worth mentioning is Distracting Shot is now back, which is awesome. Even though Distracting Shot isn't something that is utilized often, it is still a really nice tool to have, especially if you're doing soloing and stuff like that. It's a good way to kind of ping-pong debuffs back and forth. Even in raids, you can find some uses for it, like on Garrosh when he summons the ads during the Whirling Corruption. If you guys are doing the separate and kill strategy, Distracting Shot is tremendously useful for that reason alone. Like, for example, say you take your own ad and kill it, and then maybe someone has like 3 on them by accident because they hurricaned for some reason, Druid's Cough. But you can take one off of them and kill it as well, so it doesn't empower the ones next to it. So Distracting Shot, while seldom used, is still very, very useful. And I really am glad to see that back, and I think everyone else is as well. Misdirect, let's talk Misdirect. It has been reverted back to its previous rendition. It is no longer an hour misdirect of threat, or redirect on threat. The reason behind this was they said that they are still looking at a way to enhance our raid utility, and that has been posted by Celestalon, which is great. He is our people's champion. He has been doing so many amazing things for the Hunter class. I want to give him a hug. Misdirect is being reverted back to its original rendition, and they're going to find a way to increase our raid utility, which I'm okay with that. I think the old Misdirect was kind of cool, but if they scrap that and give us something even better, I'm totally down for that, because the old Misdirect was still, it was I don't even, how do you phrase this? Both of the Mr. X were almost equal in terms of value. And adding a new raid utility instead, I think I'm totally down for. And I was reading some of the Hunter blogs this week, and Bendak had some really cool ideas for raid utilities, and the two I liked the most were, and I thought this was awesome, the Hunter's Focus, which reduces the resource cost of all party and raid members, their spells and abilities by a % amount for, X amount of seconds. But the one I thought the most, the one I thought that was the coolest and had the coolest name was Lay of the Land, which reduces the AoE damage taken by a % amount for X amount of seconds for all of your party and raid members. Which, one, amazing name, and two, awesome ability. I really like this one because it won't necessarily be used for all of the encounters, but it's still really useful when you need it. And I feel like this operates a lot like Aspect of the Wild. Like, it wasn't something that hunters used all the time, but when you did need to use it, it was very useful. Like Hagara and Dragon Soul, what I think is the most exemplary example in that regard, during the lightning phase to run Aspect of the Wild. So I think those are really cool ideas. Celestalon, I know you've been listening to the community. Give those two a whirl, I guess, because I think they're pretty awesome. But I know you probably have something in mind as well. So there is those two things I really liked, and I'm excited to see what the changes are going to be. I don't have much in the way of creativity, so I couldn't really... I've already given my examples a few shows ago with, like, Aspect of the Tortoise and stuff like that. But leave it to the experts for that kind of stuff. I just talk about hunters and shoot things. So let's talk a bit more about some of the awesome changes coming our way in Warlords. And remember we talked about flaming shots being removed? Now it's replaced with exotic munitions, which is totally awesome in its own. What it does is basically gives you 3 weapon imbues, so you can change the type of ammunition you're firing. And so Incendiary is every auto attack is 20% additional weapon damage, has fire damage, and an 8-yard radius, so it adds AoE, which I think is pretty sweet. There's the Poisoned Ammunition, which is your 200% of your attack power as nature damage, and every time it is refreshed, the remaining damage gets rolled over into the next application, which is super. And then there's the Frozen one, which is 40% additional weapon damage as Frost and reduces the target's movement speed by 50% for 8 seconds. I think that might be a little OP for PvP. Every time you auto-shot, the target movement speed is reduced by 50% for 8 seconds. Isn't that like the old Frost Shock that Shamans had, where it was like a 6-second cooldown and an 8-second freeze? It was like, yeah, we might need to take a look at that. I'm not saying nerf it, but I think a lot of classes are gonna, cry havoc about that one and complain. So I think they're awesome. I imagine Incendiary and Poison are gonna be the ones you roll and raid the most, unless you have to kite and add around in Warlords, which I wouldn't be surprised if you did. They said the encounters that they were adding are going to be very dynamic. It could happen. So I think Frozen is going to be cool in PvP. You might find some uses for it, doing like old world stuff, kiting, perhaps solo as well. But Incendiary, absolutely, you're going to be using on any AoE encounter. I guarantee it. Like if exotic munitions are worth taking from the other 2 talents, Lone Wolf and Focusing Shot. And then the Poisoned one is definitely going to be single target. Now, Celestalon tweeted that there is a potential to see these abilities to be able to change during combat, almost like stances or aspects. And it's not decided yet. They're still thinking on it. But this really adds a new element of gameplay. Pardon the pun. But I'm down for this. Like, if they have something like this, it really increases the skill cap of this talent by being able to, stance, which is pretty neat, and it allows you to play more dynamically. Because, so say, you're single targeting, and then the ads come out, and you switch to, from Poison to Incendiary, you're adapting on the fly, and you're going to increase your damage output because of this. I think that's cool, and it's engaging. But he said that there may be a penalty if you do something like this, like it's a 3-second cast to switch between munitions, which is okay. I mean, 3 seconds of downtime is never good in my book, just because I always like to have as much active uptime as you can. But, if it's more damage in the long run, cool. And we get a penalty for switching. I get that, because it is pretty awesome to be able to roll 3 types of munitions in one encounter if you wanted to or needed to. But there is that. So I'm leaning more towards keeping it as something that you can, or not keeping it, sorry, changing it to something that you can do in combat. But if they kept it static, where you could change it only, out of combat, that would be okay too. But I think if they did it, I think that adds a lot more value to that talent. But it's exciting to see burning shots removed and replaced with such a cool new talent choice instead. So all around, pretty awesome. Leaning more towards doing it in combat, but hey, I'm still happy. So rapid fire getting even more changes also. So rapid fire is marksmanship exclusive now, remember that. But rapid fire now incorporates careful aim into its use, making it an even more powerful cooldown for the spec. Now, for those of you that don't remember or just don't play marksman enough, careful aim increases the critical strike chance of your aimed and steady shots by 75%, so almost a guaranteed crit. With your current crit levels on the target for any target above 80% health. So being able to do this while rapid fire is up as well is awesome. I love this cooldown now. I'm so excited to play marksman and warlord. You don't even know. But it adds something interesting. So that's the basics of it, right? And even more powerful rapid fire. But what I was kind of thinking of is if because when you start a boss now, say you're farming Siege of Orgrimmar and like Iron Juggernaut, you pull Juggernaut, and the raid blasts all of its cooldowns in the opener and Bloodlust is up and everything like that. The target goes down from 1 to 80 or 100% to 80% so quickly. So what I was thinking, and I don't know the math behind this sounds like something for Delirium to do, is what if you saved rapid fire until after the 80% of the fight, so you got even more critical strike uptime with your aimed shot and steady shot, which would result in more piercing shot damage, the piercing bleeds that you get from having those crit. I don't know. It's something I thought about, but I'm no mathematician. I would like to see something in the way of saving your rapid fire. Of course, having rapid fire up with your potion, with the Bloodlust, it's going to be a heavy damage cooldown if you do it in the opener, but I was just thinking, well, what if you did save it? What would happen? I doubt that's going to be something that we'll ever see in the gameplay, but it's possible, and it was just kind of a passing thought. So, interesting stuff. Changing gears a little bit again, some models were released. A lot of the raid and dungeon and tier models have been released on MMO Champion, and Hunters actually got some pretty cool weapons. I think there's, interestingly enough, the challenge modes for Warlords of Draenor aren't going to offer armor sets. They're going to offer weapons, which I don't know how I feel about, because armor sets, I think, for the Mists challenge modes were so well done. I mean, a lot of the challenge mode armors for Paladins and Hunters and stuff like that were really beautiful, I thought. I mean, the art really represented, for the most part, the class, even Death Knights, and I mean, I'd say almost all of them except for Monk, I thought I was actually a really big fan of. And there is no just armor sets for the WoD challenge modes, and that's kind of a bummer. I don't know if that's just because they're already working on Warlords tier sets and they didn't want to add even more tier sets. Who knows? Maybe a change of pace, but the challenge mode gun for Hunters is kind of weird. It's the first time we've seen such an animated weapon in a while. It's kind of like this plasma gun that has three I couldn't even explain it if I wanted to. You can go check it out on MMO Champion. But it's very weird, I think. But there's a raid weapon in the models this week that was released. It's like this stake launcher, harpoon gun kind of deal. I think it's called stake thrower or something like that. But the animation is seriously this harpoon being launched with a chain on this stake thrower kind of gun. It looks very vampire huntery, and it's very cool. I'm actually really excited to get a hold of this weapon and maybe even build a transmog set around it, some reds and browns and stuff like that. That's a really cool model. I'm excited to see that one. There is a challenge mode bow apparently that they had in the notes, but it's not in the model's not there yet. So I'm excited for the bow. Hopefully the bow kind of redeems the gun. I thought the gun was weird, but maybe you guys might like it. And yeah, the new models are actually really cool for some of the challenge mode ones, like the mace was incredible, and so yeah, kind of neat. Speaking of models too, and there's new pet models released this week as well. A lot of flyers. There was a few. The Ravagers are very interesting. Those are the ground ones so far. It looks like they have wings, but they don't fly. If you guys saw that one crazy Ravager mount that they posted on MMO Champion a while back with the saddle on it, it looks like exactly that, but without the saddle. Pretty cool, very vicious. But the ones I was most interested in are these wasps. They're called, the model says it's a hook wasp or something like that. But I really like the aesthetics of it, and the colors are very neat. But my biggest complaint when it comes to flying pets, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but their animations are just so obnoxious to me. And I don't know if that's me or a universal thing, but like the wind serpents, when they fly, they undulate like so weird. And when they go and attack, they fly in like this weird straight, like it looks like a flying worm. And I mean, I guess that is what it is in the most simplest of terms, but I hope that with these new flying models that they kind of fix the way that they're animated. I think it's the animations that really puts me off about them. Like the Dragon Hawks, I think, are like slightly better in terms of the way they move across the map when you have it go attack something, but I mean, for the most part, I don't use flying pets because of this. However, there are toucans that they released as hunter pets, and I'm pretty sure that these are tameable, and they look super, super cool, like an actual toucan, you know, very vibrant colors, these long beaks. The beaks have a few spikes on them. I'm excited. I will definitely tame a toucan. I really hope, however, that the animation for it when it's idle is actually rested on the ground. I would really appreciate if it landed instead of just flew around flapping its wings everywhere. I don't know. That's the reason I don't use Dragon Hawks and Wind Striders or whatever they're called, the Wind Serpents and things like that, just because it drives me batty that they're all over the place when they're flying around, and it's just, I don't know. Ugh, not a fan. But the wasps, I think, are really cool. I hope the animation for them are very subtle and they're not so in your face kind of thing. But as far as pet models go, I think Warlords is really offering a lot of cool stuff. I mean, this is in conjunction with the hippopotamus and all the other crazy pets we're getting. I forget the rest of them off the top of my head, but pretty sweet stuff. I like new models, of course. I think everybody does. But the flying, I really hope they get down this time. I know the animations for them are probably going to be different than their standard run-of-the-mill stuff because the models are so unique this time around. I think that the wasps might actually share the same model as the Encourage wasps, but maybe they might change the way it looks when they're flying about. Who knows? But not to beat a dead horse or anything, but yeah, in short, I really hope that they change the animations on these, and I'm excited to get a toucan. Like, I really hope the toucan is going to be an awesome pet to have. I'm interested to see what buffs it's going to bring. But like the hook wasps, they're exotic pets, and they bring like 3 buffs to the table. They have a slow fall, stamina, and haste, which is a big 3. I kind of like that this exotic pet offers more in terms of utility, especially if you're like a BM hunter, and I mean maybe like a 10-man flex or something like that, or what are they calling it now, normal? That you can bring 3 or 2, I guess, buffs with 1 pet, and utility, which is the slow fall. I doubt you'll ever need to use it, but hey, it's there. So that's kind of neat. I like that they've made that addition. It'd be cool to see even more exotic pets gain more buffs to bring, because it really helps cover the raid, especially for if you're like a normal guild, then you're only going to be running like 10 or 12 people. Sometimes it may be a little bit harder to cover those buffs as opposed to a 20-man or a 25-man, where it's like a guaranteed buff coverage. But yeah, cool stuff at least. But I think that's all of the outstanding and noteworthy changes for hunters so far that we've seen in like the last week and a half. And I just want to say, like, everything that we've seen so far is just fantastic. I mean, I haven't really been keeping up or following with any other classes, primarily because the only thing I really play on the side is a prot paladin. But I mean, just talk about an amazing time to play hunter. I mean, these are just such inspiring and just so many amazing changes to the talent trees and the class and just the specs in general that I'm excited to play Hunter and Warlords of Draenor more than I think I've ever been any other time that they've released class changes prior to an expansion. I mean, ever. I don't know if you guys feel the same way or not, but like I said at the start of the show, I mean, what a time to play Hunter in Warcraft. If you don't, I know there's a few people listening to the show that don't have Hunter mains. I don't know what your guys' class is shaping up to be in Warlords, but come over to the green side, because we have cookies and an amazing class is what it's shaping up to be. So I'm really excited so far, and we're not even done yet. There's still the raid utility that needs to be hashed out, and we're just starting with alpha, right? We haven't even gotten into beta yet. So very cool stuff overall. Let's move on to another topic I want to discuss a little bit, and then we'll kind of wrap up the show. So like I mentioned last week, I wanted to have a guest on for this show, but we had to reschedule because I went out of town, and I didn't get to have them on for this week. What I want to talk about is marksman hunters. I feel like, since we already talked about survival and we've already talked about beast mastery, marksman still holds a place in our show, I think. Even though it may not be the most impressive spec right now, I think it offers a change of pace if you guys want to give it a shot. Like I said last episode, even though it may not be super impressive, if you understand and know how to play it a bit better or gain even more insight, I think it might become a bit more appealing, and you can try it out just as a change of pace, because right now the game is very dull, I think, overall. I mean, you can find a few things to do, but, the more knowledge and information you guys are armed with, the more successful this show is, in my opinion. And, that's the goal, is to just give you guys the information that you need to know and, grow from that. So I'm gonna continue contacting my guest. I'm not gonna name who it is because that's a secret. I think you guys will be fairly surprised and and enthusiastic with who it is, though. We just have to find a time to get back together again. So that's that. So I think next episode is really going to be about Marksman. Although if it was, because we're kind of ping ponging back and forth our schedules here now that I'm working again during the summer season. We're just trying to find a time to get together and knock this thing out. However, with the website going live this week, at least that's what I intend to happen. I'm going to start, like, right after I said after the show's over, I'm headed over to begin, creating the domain and the website, which is going to spend, I think, most of my time during the week on. It may be a show that actually discusses not Marksman. I mean, like I said, it just depends, but perhaps, like, soloing or even Siege of Orgrimmar, tips and tricks, like in-depth discussion on the encounters. I don't know how interested you guys may be on that, so give me feedback, please, as to what you may be more inclined to hear on next week's episode, or perhaps the one after that. It's not that I'm, like, necessarily fishing for ideas for the show. I just kind of want to know what you guys are more interested in. I want to hear feedback, so that's the big one. And of course, you can email or tweet that whenever. But yeah, I mean, with that out of the way, you guys let me know, because that's the big thing. I mean, I love to hear from you guys. I mean, that's, like, the highlight of my days when I have emails that I get to discuss and respond to and just talk about hunters with. So, with that being said, I wanted to give some 5-star shout-outs on iTunes to people who left these really kind reviews on iTunes. Every time I read your guys' reviews, I mean, it's the reason why I do the show, and being encouraged like that is just such a tremendous feeling. So a big shout out to Rue from the CTR Guild and Lord Melvin for some of the kindest 5-star reviews I think I've ever seen. So thank you guys very much for that. I really do appreciate it. I truly do. It means a lot. So thank you again. And yeah, so in regards to next week's show, if I can get the guest on, darn tootin', we're going to have a guest and talk about Marksman. However, if not, I think we're going to talk about some more of hunter just lifestyle. Is that the appropriate word for that? Like soloing, tips and tricks for certain encounters. Like, I kind of want to know, like, maybe pull around, like, what are you guys actually working on in Siege? Are you just like an LFR flex raider? Are you finished with normals and starting heroics? Are you stuck on the last 3 on heroic? I mean, by gauging that information, I'm going to be able to tell how to structure next week's episode if we don't get the guest. So just let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. Like I said, email, Twitter. And with that being said, I think we're going to wrap up the show. There wasn't a whole lot of discussion, just kind of a lot of news and thoughts. But like I said, next week's a new episode, and we're going to have a lot to discuss. Either way, we cut the cake. So there is that. So thank you guys for tuning in this week for episode 7. If you want to contact the show, get an email in, question, comment, concern, hate mail, I guess. I haven't gotten any of that, though, so I guess that means it's a good sign. We're doing something right here. You can do that at cloakandquiver@gmail.com. If you want to follow the show for show updates, you can do so at Twitter, which is at Cloak and Quiver. And if you want to follow me for Hunter and Warcraft related snippets, I guess, you can do that at _solarflare, and flare is FLAIR. I think that's going to do it for this week's show. I'm very excited for next week's. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. I think that's going to do it. I'll catch you guys on the flip side, and have a great week, and I will see you next time. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. We'll